The idea of a memorial to mining was originally raised back in 1992 by Mr. Charlie Snedden. But it wasn't until 2003, when Bonnie Bowness joined with the Community Council, that the current design and location was agreed. You may ask, how has it taken since 2003 to get to the position we're in now? Well, briefly, we had to initially have discussions with Falkirk Council to get them on board, and then we had to find a landscape architect, in our case Fiona Fisher, who, with her team, could interpret our requirements and with knowledgeable suggestions and guidance end up with a fitting design that is before you. We had to find a wheel of a suitable size, have it reconditioned, have a support frame constructed, and the whole lot painted. This was undertaken by local firm Ballantyne's Engineering. You then have to find a suitable site. This, if I recall, was our fourth choice. The others had either a sewer pipe running underneath the plot, was too close to the road and considered as a potential traffic problem and was vetoed by the roads department, or had soft subsoil, which had been filled in with waste from one of the long-forgotten Bowness potteries. From there, you have to get planning permission, find a suitable contractor to do the construction, and then you have the mammoth task of finding suitable funders to allocate money to pay for it. And this was one of the most difficult tasks of all. We consider that our memorial is unique in that it tells a brief story of mining in the area through the plaques that surround the base. And I'd like you to take time later to actually look at the particular plaques. You will see from the plaques that the story starts back in the 11th century, when monks dug or gathered coal from Caradon, and ends in 1982, when the last colliery, Kinneil, closed. These plaques in themselves are special, in that they were designed, designed by local school children who, with guidance from Yvonne McBlain, a local art teacher and advisor, worked on their design, firstly on paper, then on scraper board, and finally we had them transferred onto black granite. I'm sure you'll agree that not only are they interesting, but also a fitting reminder by local children of the mining heritage we have in our town. I'd like to finish by quoting what Walter Stanners, a miner himself, had said one of our last meetings. He said, "This country owes a lot to miners and mining. The country grew great on coal and mining. In fact, that is what put the great into Great Britain." And he is right. It was coal that fueled the Industrial Revolution that took Britain to the fore in industrial expertise and manufacturing. I thank you for your attention. I'd now like to pass you on to an old friend of mine, Mr. Ian Scott.
Thank you, Gus. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. It's a great privilege, an honour and a pleasure to be here today to say a few words about the history of mining in this part of the world on this day in which you have created the Bowness Wheel. It may not be as big as the Falkirk Wheel, but in terms of its importance and its historical significance, it far outweighs the significance of the wheel in Falkirk. And despite what Gus has just said about this being the fourth location, it could scarcely have been in a better place, because the place on which we're standing here is the end of the tramway that was built in 1772 under the trustees of Dr. John Roebuck to carry coal from the new pits higher up the hill down to the harbour, because it was the harbour of Bowness, and we're just opposite the old West Pier Tavern here, just round the corner. It was the harbour and the coal mining industry that made this community what it was, and made it one of the most important ports in the whole of Scotland. We've heard that coal was first lifted 9 centuries ago in Caradon. That's as far as the written record's concerned. But of course, long, long before that, people were gathering outcropping sea coal along the coast here. And then later on they were driving horizontally into the hills here, following the coal in mines all over this part of the world. And later on, of course, digging shallow bell pits and then deep shafts all over. This hill behind us to the south is completely undermined. It's a honeycomb. I've got here a map of the pits, and some of you near enough will be able to see this. Every black dot on that represents a different shaft with a different name. And the names are romantic. There's the Well of Spa pit and Taylor's pit, and there's a schoolyard pit and the clock tower pit not far from here. And there's Dillon's pit and the Acre pit, everywhere carrying the names of people and places. A reminder of a past that is completely linked to coal. But romantic names they might be, but the business going on underneath the ground was far from romantic. These were dark, desperately dangerous places where people lost their lives and were injured by the hundreds, by the thousands in Bo'ness over the many centuries that coal was lifted from the ground. As the old folk song says, it's dark as a dungeon and damp as the dew, where the dangers are doubled and the pleasures are few, where the rain never falls and the sun never shines. It's dark as a dungeon way down in the mine. People died lifting coal from the bowels of the earth below this community, and did so over 900 years. And of course, their enemies were not only the ones that they encountered below the ground, the dark and the damp and the cramp and the water. They had enemies on the surface too. You know, recently we've been celebrating the fact that the slave trade came to an end 200 years ago. And yet only 8 years before that, the government finally saw fit to liberate coal miners and their families, men and women and children, from effectively slavery in their own communities. These were serfs who could be bought and sold along with so many yards of rail or so many pit props. They had no freedom to move. They had a hard, difficult life. If they left, they could be punished and brought back. They could be physically punished by being chained up behind the horses, turning the gins. So this was no easy life. In 1799, they were liberated from serfdom, but it didn't ease their life, because we know that up until 1840, little children as young as 6 and 7 were working long, hard hours underneath the pit here. I'm not going to, the record is there for everyone to see. I'm going to satisfy myself with just reminding you of one account, one young lady called Mary Snedden in the pit in Bo'ness. She told the inspector, my brother died when a fall of rock hit him on the head, and he died instantly. He was brought home, coffined and buried in Bo'ness kirkyard. No one came to ask what had happened to him. They never do in this place. That's the sacrifice that your forefathers made to build this community. And today we honour their memory in a way that should perhaps have been done a long time ago. I'm absolutely delighted that 25 years after the last coal was lifted from the ground, and a whole generation of young people has grown up not knowing what it's like to live in a coal town, that you have put this reminder there, the reminder of the debt that they owe to their forefathers for the community that was created by their hard and unremitting labour. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you and your committee for the work that's been done in this way. You have indeed done your duty to the past and to the future. Thank you very much indeed.